The skies of Virela 3 burned what had once been humanity's most beautiful colony. A lush ocean world known for sapphire reefs and floating gardens was reduced to molten slag under the bombardment of the Valkesh fleets. Their plasma lances turned cities into steam, oceans into boiling glass, and dreams into ash. The attack was not provoked. Humanity had petitioned peace. It had begged for arbitration from the Galactic Council after the Valkesh demanded ownership of the system, citing ancestral rights. The Council, a conglomerate of 1,000 species, had listened. They had nodded. And they had laughed. Human ambassadors were mocked, their pleas dismissed as the cries of primitive apes too emotional for diplomacy. One counselor, a scaled creature with silver fangs, had leaned forward and sneered, "You humans speak of law, but you have no claws to enforce it." And so, when the Valkesh came, the council did nothing. They watched the human colony burn through distant holofeeds, murmuring that the outcome was unfortunate, but legal. 3 million civilians died screaming, into the void. Families vaporized under council-sanctioned apathy. The human envoy was still in the chamber when the reports came in. She stood in silence as footage of her homeworld's death played on the council screens. Then she whispered, just loud enough for the translators to carry across the chamber, "You've mistaken mercy for weakness." And then she left. No one saw her smile. The laughter of the council in the cycles that followed. The council moved on. Trade resumed. Debates over tariffs and shipping routes filled the chambers once again. The destruction of a single human colony was considered a footnote, a minor adjustment in the galactic balance. Humans, after all, were still newcomers. They were known for their boundless curiosity. Not their fleets. Their ships were considered serviceable but crude. Their colonies, brash but fragile. When human envoys requested another hearing to discuss reparations, the council's response was mockery. Reparations? From the Valkesh? For what? Their victory? One counselor laughed. The Valkesh representative, towering and covered in chitin armor, added with a sneer, "Let them demand compensation if they dare. I welcome another chance to test their resolve." The chamber erupted in laughter. Outside the council hall, news channels debated whether humanity would withdraw from galactic politics entirely. Earth, the commentators said, is too sentimental for the realities of interstellar law. Yet deep beneath the noise of diplomacy and trade, something ancient stirred in humanity's collective soul. Humanity remembered. The silence before the storm. For almost 2 standard years, the Terran systems were quiet. No new colonies. No trade agreements. No presence in the council. To the galaxy, it seemed as though Earth had accepted its humiliation. The Valkesh fleets returned to their wars, confident in their superiority. The council continued its endless debates. The galaxy moved on, or tried to, but quiet does not mean peace. Sometimes, silence is the breath before a scream. When the first reports arrived, they were dismissed as rumors. Valkesh listening posts along the Perseid Reach had gone dark. Entire fleets unresponsive. Their command stations, fortified on asteroids, stopped transmitting. Patrols sent to investigate, never returned. Then came the image. A single frame captured by a dying relay drone. It showed a fleet unlike any the galaxy had seen. Dark silhouettes blotting out the stars, hulls black as void. No emblems, no markings, no communication beacons. And at the center, a shape, colossal, angular, and unmistakably Terran. Someone whispered, "That's not a ship, that's a continent." They were wrong. It was a vengeance engine. When Earth answered, the first open transmission came 3 weeks later. It was not broadcast in diplomatic channels. It wasn't encoded in the languages of the Council. It came in old, Terran standard, transmitted on every frequency, every wavelength, across every known sector. "This is Earth Command. To the Valkesh Dominion, you have slain our people. You have razed our homes. You have laughed at our grief. Now hear our reply. You wanted to know what claws look like. You will." And then, silence. Until the sky fell. The Valkesh home system, once a beacon of crimson suns and massive shipyards, found itself under siege. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace like a storm unbound. The first wave carried no banners, no words, no mercy. Orbital defense grids melted. Under kinetic slugs traveling at a third of light, speed Valkesh carriers shattered before they could launch fighters. The Second wave carried the dreadnoughts. Ships the size of moons, each one bearing a single name etched into its hull. Virella's Revenge, Deliverance, Soul's Wrath, Judgment. Behind them followed something worse, the Reclaimers, Black Ops fleets specialized in ground reclamation. They did not conquer, they eradicated, for every human colony burned. 10 Valkesh worlds were turned to glass. The galaxy watched in horror. The Age of Fire. The Valkesh, for all their arrogance, fought hard. They unleashed biological weapons, gravity mines, even collapsed entire stars to trap human fleets in singularity storms. But humanity had changed. The fleets of Earth no longer resembled the exploratory vessels of the past. They were engineered for one purpose: vengeance. Every ship bore the names of the dead. Every missile carried the ashes of the fallen. Every captain swore an oath: no surrender, no forgiveness. When the Valkesh High Command attempted to negotiate, their message reached Earth. The reply came not from diplomats, but from a single woman, the same envoy once mocked in the council chamber. Her voice was cold. "You taught us the value of law. Now we enforce it." Then, the transmission ended, replaced by live footage of the Valkesh capital's surface cracking open under orbital bombardment. Cities turned into oceans of molten glass, atmospheres burned. Valkesh screams echoed across comms until there were no comms left. The fracture of the Council. The Galactic Council convened in panic. Every species capable of faster-than-light travel gathered in the Great Hall. The chamber that once rang with laughter now trembled with fear. One counselor shouted, "They're exterminating them!" Another hissed, "We must intervene before Earth burns the galaxy." But none dared send ships. The Valkesh had once been the Council's enforcers, their strongest military power. Now, they were gone. Within weeks, half their empire was erased. The other half was surrendering to empty space, and then Earth turned its gaze upon the Council itself. Without warning, the holographic image of Earth's envoy appeared in the chamber. Older now, uniformed, eyes cold as vacuum. She did not speak at first. The silence stretched until even the counselor's breathing grew shallow. Finally, she said, "You were told, you were warned. You mocked our pleas, sanctioned our pain, and called it law." She stepped closer. Or rather, the hologram did. Her image towered over them. "We asked for justice. You gave us mockery. Now, you will watch." And then, in real time, the chamber's screens displayed a council relay world, neutral territory, being struck by precision orbital fire. The planet's surface shattered like glass. Gasps filled the chamber. That, she said, was a reminder. Stay silent, or share their fate. The feed ended, the march of shadows. For the next decade, humanity did not conquer. It reshaped. The old trade routes became guarded Terran corridors. The Council fleets were disarmed for collective security. Human intelligence networks operated everywhere. Terran black fleets patrolled the void in silence, unseen but always known. The Council still met, but now under human supervision. The old laughter was gone. In its place was a quiet terror, the kind that lives in the bones. When a minor species attacked a Terran freighter years later, their world was surrounded within hours. No bombardment came this time. Just a message burned into their moon in molten letters visible from orbit. "Do not touch what is ours." The message didn't need translation. The whisper of fear. The galaxy learned quickly. Where once the Council had spoken law, now it spoke fear. Where once Earth was called young, it was now called eternal. The Valkesh were gone, their names stricken from star maps. The species that had laughed at humanity's grief became a myth whispered in corridors. Don't end like them. Children on alien worlds grew up hearing it as a warning. Never provoke Earth. In time, the Council rebuilt, under Terran oversight. But even then, no one forgot the price of mockery. The envoy, now Grand Admiral, visited the chamber one last time. She stood where she had once begged for mercy. Now, every species in the room stood silent. Heads bowed, she spoke softly. "We never wanted dominion, only respect. You forced us to teach the cost of contempt." She turned to leave, then paused. "Humanity's patience is vast, but our vengeance is infinite." And with that, she vanished into the hum of teleportation light. The Council chamber remained silent for a long time. No one moved. No one spoke, because they all knew, somewhere out there, hidden behind the dark between stars, Earth was watching. Epilogue. The burned sky centuries later, a lone traveler crossed the remains of the Valkesh system. All that remained were drifting shards of glass, continents frozen mid-scream. In the dust of one shattered moon, his sensors detected an engraving, a message carved by some ancient Terran hand. It read, "They mocked our pain. Now their laughter sleeps in ash." He stared at it for a long time before whispering the words that every species knew. Every child was taught, every counselor remembered in their darkest dreams. Never provoke Earth again. Then he turned his ship toward the nearest sun, careful not to stray too close to Sol. Because